Hey, and welcome back. I'm Ed Socia with Data Center Hawk, and I've got Senior Insight Analyst Montana Myer joining me again today for episode 2 of our North American Regional Data Center Hawk podcast. Now, if this is your first time joining us, we here at Data Center Hawk provide deal-backed data center real estate intelligence globally via our platform and experience team to help people make better decisions around data centers. So today we're going to be focusing on the broader development trends we're seeing in North America. So these are things like, what's changing with the approach to site selection strategy, construction development, and maybe touching on some of those operational innovations that we're seeing within these data centers. So Montana, thanks again for sharing your wisdom with me and those listening, and we're happy to have you on again.
Hey, Ed. Happy to be on here and happy to talk about what we're seeing in the market today.
Definitely. So let's start with the challenges and strategies for development and construction in North America. Montana, in your opinion, what is top of mind for providers today in being thoughtful in where and how they're constructing their data centers?
Yeah, I think the story's been a little bit of the same. I think power is obviously top of mind. Where can I get a site that's going to have the power infrastructure so that I can have the power delivered to my site in a timely manner, so that whether that's by 2026 or, even 2028 is somewhat reasonable for some of these different markets that we're seeing. But if we kind of set the power aspect out of this and talk about a couple different other things that, I think are important, one of those is some of these local regulations, whether that's the state or even the city level regulations. Right now, there's a couple state level bills that are being proposed in a variety of states that would have an impact. Whether that's, I think in the state of Indiana, there's a bill proposed that all data centers would have to report their power and water usage quarterly, and most data center providers and users are not going to want to do that. And then there's also some about the power side of things of like, hey. Data centers are going to have to start generating power on site. And, none of those are necessarily in place yet, but that is something super important, I think, to consider as, groups are looking to do site selection. Another thought is just, cost versus speed. There's a great difference in terms of I can spend a ton of money on a site that has power, in the next year, and that's going to cost me a lot more, but I'll be able to deliver it faster and hopefully secure a lease faster. Or you can get just a land site that may not have all the entitlements or the electrical service agreement in place, and that's going to cost less, but your timeline is going to be a little bit slower.
Yeah, Montana.
What else comes to mind?
Montana, you bring up a really interesting point with the incentives. I think. So to use sort of two examples, here in Denver, they've been trying to get some data center sales and use tax abatements passed, and those have not really come to fruition. And we are seeing some development here in Denver. Stuff's moving east towards, past Aurora, towards Denver International Airport. But it's not happening at the speed that we're seeing stuff be deployed in, let's say, that northwest quadrant of Indiana that I believe you mentioned. So, now we're thinking of that piece of Indiana as sort of a spillover submarket from Chicago because of power constraints in Chicago. People who don't want to go out to, as we mentioned last time, DeKalb. We've seen all of the hyperscalers, announce plans to build in that region. So, I do think those incentives are a driving factor, but I don't think they're just on the tax side. I mean, the utility incentives, both on the sort of pricing side of it, getting a cheaper utility rate as a data center is beneficial to the developers, as well as that fuel mix. I mean, the cleaner the fuel mix is, that is incentivizing people to go into those markets. So I certainly think touching on those incentives as a driving force of where folks are building, where they want to be, is paramount in understanding, where the ball is moving.
Yeah, and I think another bill, I came across another bill that basically was proposing like a tax credit of some sort to people who would build SMRs these small reactors for data center power. And so, even incentivizing, clean power generation is, that's being proposed today to hopefully, help grow the market in the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, Montana, you also touched on the speed to market piece. I think it's really interesting and it's pretty complex, right? Because a lot of these power costs, I mean, the energy cost is one of the more significant costs of behind running a data center, behind the OpEx of a data center. So understanding, balancing that speed to market with also, being able to profit and the cost of doing business, but that energy, that power cost is more often than not a pass through to the customer. So I think the developers are trying to find this balance between, hey, we want to satisfy our end users, and we want the power as soon as we can get it. If we have to pay a little bit more upfront, that cost is eventually going to pass through to the end user either way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. And, people are paying up front for, a substation on site so that they could, potentially get that power sooner, which is going to benefit them, to secure a lease in a market that is more active and has a lower vacancy rate. So it allows them to be a little bit more competitive. And,
That's right.
Get a return on that investment.
That's right. That the lower that vacancy rate goes, and the more demand we see in the market, the more upward pricing momentum we're going to see in those asking rates. This is all really interesting, Montana. Let's move a little bit towards sort of the innovation side of things. So, innovations in sustainability and the facility management behind operating your data center continue to move towards this more, efficient sort of system, like lowering PUE, promoting intelligent use of energy and water. This has really increased demand for smarter, DSIM software, things like supervisory control and data acquisition, or SCADA systems, along with, on the utility side, the advanced metering infrastructure. So let me ask you this. I guess, what do you think this continued implementation of these technologies, what impact will this have on, the operational success of data centers, as well as hitting some of these efficiency and sustainability goals?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's going to serve them to help lower the PUE. I think that's the major goal, is to help lower PUE, increase PUE, but also WUE, your water usage efficiency. I think both of those are becoming increasingly important. We don't hear as much in terms of ESG goals and whatnot from these different groups, but those are still valuable things, because if I have 100 megawatts, for example, and my PUE is 1.5, I'm not getting as much of that power to my IT infrastructure as I could as if my PUE was 1.1. And so being able to optimize and use some of these different data sources to make your systems more efficient from an operational side of things is super valuable. And so I think being able to have all the data in place and all the systems to capture it allows you to make decisions and help automate things. And I think we'll continue to see it, improve and get better, and hopefully make the systems, like the data center itself, operate more efficiently.
I would absolutely agree with that, Montana. And I think that's one of these really beneficial uses of AI is taking this mountain of data, parsing it out, processing it, and understanding, hey, where do we need to be more efficient? Where is some of our, where are some of our weak points, and how do we better sort of bolster, things like, as you mentioned, sustainable water usage. So, Montana, we're going to wrap up here shortly. I guess let me flip it to you. What are some other challenges, or give me one more challenge that you're hearing about in your sort of channel checks, that sort of might be a bit of a challenge for developers to think about when, thoughtfully developing their data center?
And one that I've actually heard a lot lately is staffing. It's come up, more and more. Have you heard that as well?
Montana, that's a great point, and I'm hearing about that quite a bit as well. When you have your data center in a tier 1 or 2 market, these are proximate to populated residential areas, But with AI moving away from these densely populated metros, these places out in sort of remote areas like we're seeing in West Texas right now, we talk about, hey, how do we find the right tech talent to be the boots on the ground to really run that data center? And I think that's quite a challenge versus historically stuff happening, closer to major metros.
Yeah, and even like the infrastructure to support like a construction workforce, in some of these locations doesn't necessarily exist, out in, West Texas and some of these areas where we're hearing about pockets of development potentially going to be occurring. And so, there's not just getting the workforce, but it's also supporting the workforce once it's there that has to be considered. Another challenge, Ed, that I think comes to mind in terms of just operating your data center is energy costs. There was an increase kind of coming out of COVID in terms of energy costs, but that does kind of dictate where some of these developments are occurring. We're not going to necessarily, I don't expect that we'll see any major hyperscale development outside of like the Boston area because, 20 cents per kilowatt hour is, a lot more expensive than, some of these other markets. And so, that's going to help determine and dictate where development's going to occur.
That's an excellent point, Montana. Energy costs are a huge piece of the puzzle. We're going to continue to have this conversation. We're going to dive into more topics related to the development and the sustainability and the leasing with these data centers. So thanks again for joining me. Again, we've got Montana Myer here. I'm Ed Socia, Director of North America for Data Center Hawk. We're out in the market helping you make better decisions, and we will see you on the next one.
See ya.